Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are we ready to rock? All right. I will now call to order the THPRD Board of Directors Retreat for October 29th, 2024. Jessica, will you please call roll?
Gracias.
Here.
Tia King.
Here.
Barbie Minor.
Here.
Alfredo Moreno.
Here.
Lisa Montblanco.
Amazing. All right. Well, first up on our docket, we will be talking about the strategic plan update. And I think we've got presenters Aisha and Holly. You're on deck.
Yes, hello, good evening. We have both a strategic plan update and kind of a general overview update of other district happenings for you tonight. So Holly's going to lead off, and then I have a few slides, and then we're going to close with sort of a glimpse at what the future could look like.
Okay, so big picture, we wanted to take a second and just celebrate the wins of 2024. Some of the great work that we've accomplished across the district. I want to give a lot of credit to Doug Menke for letting us take 30 seconds to celebrate wins before talking about
on to the next.
right into the next. It's progress, man. And then we're going to talk about what's ahead and what are the big ticket items that we're thinking of over the next year. And so first and foremost, yay, we passed the levy. Almost 57% of our voters were there for us in May. To say yes, that 5-year operating levy is a must. We were able to retain 250 positions. We were able to keep all of our facilities open, protect all of our hours of service, protect preschool programs, protect after-school programs, protect the safety and integrity of our park and trail and natural area spaces, a big win. And also a wonderful building block, right? Now we've got this learning experience we've been through together. We can take what we've learned and get even better as we think of the future of talking to our voters again about future endeavors. Also, on behalf of everyone in the Recreation Division, Julie, Sabrina, and all the amazing staff that they work with, we want to celebrate some of what you've already seen over the last year. And the general message is the upswing in participation. These are those fall registration numbers. On the next slide, we'll see the summer registration numbers. And the message is clear. People are getting back out. They're participating. Participation is up. We're getting back to where we want to be. Programs are happening. Their staff is on all cylinders flying. We've seen greater participation in Centro de Bienvenida, in financial aid, and in those creative programs. So we're getting back to doing what we do best.
Speaking of what we do best, taking care of our spaces is one of those things. So we can't move past 2024 without commenting on something that significantly impacted our district, and that was the ice storm in January, which required a recovery from January into February, but ultimately our spaces and places are in much better shape now. We've taken down a bunch of hazard trees. We have taken down some damaged play equipment, and that is not yet replaced, and we will be looking at that. But this was a wonderful way for us to watch our staff kind of rally around these spaces. And last week we had the great honor of hearing about the process to identify all of the damage that then led to us being able to quantify that damage and provide that information, which was a great exercise, though it didn't result in all that much funding. It was a great exercise for us to go through so that we can, in the future, be able to provide that information and seek funding for some of the damage that we've sustained. We also wanted to highlight the adoption of the Climate Action Plan, which was the very first one for THPRD. And it's a great tool, along with the full complement of other plans that we have adopted in the last couple of years, to talk about how we're going to set ourselves up to provide a more resilient community for the folks we serve. This is very familiar information. You would have seen this earlier this month. And we think this is a really big news story. We have talked about our step into the conversation around affordable housing in the district, and our role to play has been in granting these waivers and with working with various providers of affordable housing to provide homes for our community members. So the header of this table was a little bit different. Holly changed it, and rightfully so, because what we really do need to celebrate here is that $2.5 million in waivers. And so we'll talk more about this later in the year, but we were really thrilled to be able to bring you that. And of course, the companion story to this is always that our ability to grant these waivers was always with the understanding we would be backfilling the funds we forego in that process by going after grants. And so just another slide to highlight the over $6.5 million in grants. So 2.5 in waivers, 6.5 in grants. That's a pretty great story there. And we're still waiting to hear on a few others. So strategic plan, this is, the foundation of what we're here to talk to you about. We really wanted to show you that chart that you saw earlier this month when we reported, and it was showing how much of the work is in process. It's a 3 to 5 year plan, and we got started on a big chunk of those items, but there are some, the 21% that's not yet started. However, we wanted to highlight the items that are now complete. So you'll see those on the screen. We already updated that program's functional plan. We adopted our climate action plan. We convened our financial futures team and generated a bunch of ideas that we then carried through our business plan process, and we got some of those funding. One of those things, one of the very exciting things we heard from that process was do more with Jenkins. And so, as you know, we now have some staff that are dedicated to that facility and programming and planning all sorts of events up there, which is really exciting to see. And then finally, just wanted to note that we have kicked off that facilities functional planning process and an update to 4 of our other plans, so that we are getting everything in line to better answer some really important questions that are ahead of us. So this slide you saw also earlier this month, and it just represents a number of items that we foresee kind of next up in line to tackle with regard to the strategic plan. And before I go, I can't not acknowledge that you know how much I love Capra. You know this. And I can't let it go without just mentioning again that we were able to reaccredit and got the perfect score, 154 standards out of 154. And it's going to be weird because when we go to accredit next time, they're changing it up and now there's only 68 standards. And that seems less exciting, but we're going to get all 68. So just so you know.
Do they have to do that because we knocked it out of the park?
We just raising that bar every day. That's our plan. So now I want to turn it back to Holly, who's going to close with where we're headed.
I'm just stuck. I think you're the only person I know who would be sad that the bar got lower. I'd be like, yo, less to do. You are a true believer. Okay, so we've had some big wins. We've had a lot accomplished. And before you start thinking about the priorities and looking at what we've seeded for you and thinking about the next year, we also wanted to close on kind of the big picture items that staff are thinking about and acknowledging some of the big ticket items that are going to take a lot of our energy and work and focus over the next year. First and foremost is planning for a 2026 bond measure. And if you heard a theme in what Aisha was talking about, plan, we've got to get all those functional plans updated. We've got to understand what our needs are across the district. We've got a lot of homework to do to be ready to get that list ready for the bond measure to talk to the public about. So a lot of internal movement, a lot of staff effort on planning for that. For the board and for communications, this will implicate a lot of our work in 2025 as well. You can remember the process that we went through to prepare for the 24 levy. We'll be thinking in 25 about preparing for 26 bond measure. We have those functional plan updates. We will be developing our first equity strategy. You heard Lulu and I talking about that, and we have an internal staff group working on drafts of that. You will see that before it progresses very far and have an opportunity to shape and influence that work. We have kicked off our assessment of the IS department. We are built for the past. We need to be built for the future. And we know that we need a different structure and we need a lot of policy work and a lot of investment in IS to prepare us to become the agency that we need to be. I'm really excited about this assessment. We're in great hands with Barry Dunn. That should be completed by January of 2025, and we'll be able to incorporate some of those recommendations into our budget planning for the next year as well. Super excited about that. We've also kicked off our website update. I know you want reg update, but website's coming first. And we're super excited about that. And this paves the way to be able to do the registration system update as well. So we need that IS assessment done before we pick up reg system, but that is not a reason to not get going on website. That group is moving and shaking, and that's going to happen in 2025 as well. It's going to be wonderful to have an updated website with better language, better responsiveness, easier to find information on it for the public. We're also working on a new model for sponsorship. We had an amazing employee who was recognized at ORPA for her Leadership Academy project. I want to really acknowledge Julie and Sabrina, particularly Julie, who mentored Mackenzie on that sponsorship model project. And looking to the future, there's a real there and a real opportunity to go after sponsorship as a new revenue stream, following up on your advice and on our Levy Task Force advice as well. And we're going to be reaping the rewards of that work and implementing that. It's going to take some work to get there, but we are excited to get that process going. And then, of course, Tia and everyone else, will begin over the next year the business requirements and the internal work to get us ready for the registration system placement. So big ticket items that we're working on, thinking of the future. And I think that's it. So thank you.
Thank you is right. I was doing high fives earlier, so I just wanted, before celebrating wins and doing all the update, I need you all to feel the excitement from over here as well. Do you need any additional comments from us, or are we moving on to our?
Moving on.
We're moving on.
Yep. Can I say something before you move on?
Sure.
So I just want to give all of y'all a huge high five. I work with so many different organizations that are in different places, some troubled, some stressed, some kind of cobbling along. And this kind of momentum is just so exciting to see, just as a resident, as a taxpayer, as a member of the human race. It's so exciting. And I know it represents just enormous amounts of work by everybody involved in the room. So congratulations to all of you. Really. Truly.
That's why we celebrate wins.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. All right, well, you had the floor there, Thomas, but I think we're sticking with you, and we're going to move into chatting about our district values and priorities.
Great. So your staff have sent to you their recommendations for your organizational values for the coming year, as well as their thoughts about budget priorities for the coming year. So let's take a step back and think about these values. So as we've talked about in years past, values are things that undergird the policy decisions that you make, the way that you operate as a team, as an organization along the way. It doesn't mean these three things are the only three things that you care about, that you have no other values besides these three values. But these are the values that you have chosen in the recent past to highlight and to affirm. The idea around values is that they tend to stay relatively consistent over time. Doesn't mean they're carved in stone and that they can never be changed, but they tend not to change year to year, so that every single year, 18 months, you have a whole new set of values. So there's a recommendation from your staff that these three values, which have been your values last year, and I don't know, I can't remember exactly how long, remain your values going forward. So this is something that we want to take one by one and give all of you an opportunity to speak to. So as staff, is there anything about these values that you wanted to say, or any thinking about recommending that they continue to be your values?
Yeah, I think nothing more than last year we did some revision, not a heavy revision by any means, but we feel very comfortable that these are, obviously leading edge that will impact decision-making process. again, the values opportunity to have the discussion is, is the board comfortable with them? Do you want to see some tweaking? We don't have to settle on the tweaking component at this meeting, but we certainly want to get input. And then the complement to it, of course, is the budget priorities that will be driven by the values.
So the first one, you have said that leading with equity is an important value for THPRD. And that you're leading with equity with particular attention, not exclusive attention, but particular attention to race and racial equity. So as you reflect on that, read this again, sit with it tonight. Thoughts, comments, questions, recommendations, ideas about this as a value. And I think it'd be great to hear from all 5 of you on each of these 3, even if it's just a thumbs up or here's.
Are you?
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Are we using our mics? No, mine doesn't work, so I'm not using it. I am happy with the state of our first value. I think my comment on this is that it is, I think, really important as a local government agency to continue to lead with this as a priority. I continue to appreciate the emphasis that we put on racial equity, thinking about the community that we service. There's a lot of diverse identities, and there's a lot of diverse racial identities in this community. I also, as I have worked with many other local government systems in the state, have seen that there are a lot of spaces where we're not just racial identities, but identities across the board are being attacked and diminished. And it makes me really proud that our community here continues to, I think, combat that by just leading by example. And I think that's really powerful. I'm really thankful to the board, my fellow members, and also to our team in the district, because I feel like that is very felt by everyone in this room, but also by the people that we service in our community.
Thank you. We don't have to go down the line, but we can. You can.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, all the thoughtful things Miles said. I feel like I know the 4 people beside me who, I mean, this is us. This is what guides us. You have a board of directors that is majority BIPOC, children of immigrants. This shapes everything we do and how we look at the world. And I couldn't be prouder that it says with special attention to racial equity. And we see that in the budgets over the last couple of years, and we see that in the things that we're championing and the things that we are prioritizing. So love it. Wouldn't change a thing.
Great. Thank you.
You or Alfredo?
Yeah, I'll just say core personal board value. Feel, I'm not sure why I'm not using certain words. I'm speaking like an unfrozen caveman. I feel like we are walking the walk with this. So I'm very satisfied. So I hope to see it at the top of our list going forward.
Great.
Yes, I love it. It's still relevant. The only thing that I would say if we could tweak it is, I mean, I know our thing is racial equity, but I feel like in this, it says ability, but I feel like calling out more things about the neurosensory community and people facing disabilities and stuff in some other way besides just ability, just to make sure that because I feel like for some reason that group gets less focused also. And I feel like we've been doing a lot of racial stuff, and I would like to start making sure that those people who always feel unseen are seen. And I don't think ability just covers those people. So if there's wording that we can get into to make sure we cover that community, I think that would be really powerful.
Great, I'll think of that as staff. Doable, makes sense?
I already
Aligned?
said that point. Right, I'm just jumping in again. Sorry, I'm being selfish. Ugh. For like the neurosensory communities and stuff, I love that you highlighted that. I recently saw something that talked about how with a lot of national parks, people who have disabilities or differently abled are able to visit those parks if they apply for these like passes cards. And neurodivergent neurosensory folks are also included in that. So I think, and this was specifically highlighting that point because, like you say, they are often overlooked. So just reinforcing that.
And I mean, I think they're in here. Ability just kind of,
Mhm.
yeah. Oh.
Yes.
In previous years, it's worked really well that when you all kind of agree on a point like this, you don't have to try to perfect it now. I can like take really good notes and then report back through Doug and give you a draft. So this is incredibly helpful and love that suggestion. So taking good notes.
All right. Anything else, Tia? Were you?
No, that was it. Yeah.
Great.
No.
Sorry about it. I will echo the sentiments of all of my board members. I mean, I think especially coming off of, some of us had the opportunity to attend the Public Employees Northwest Diversity Conference. And just really at a time when trying to address the past with respect and truth and really having an ability to lift every member of our community up. That I really am, it's resonating with me a lot, Miles, what you said about leading by example. I just think it speaks to, again, especially I think all of us who are seated up here. So no change other than, again, what has been noted to just make sure that we are representing all folks and how can we be really explicit and clear about that. But love it. Proud of
Great.
it. Very.
So resounding unanimous support and appreciation and gratitude. Even while we take the word ability and we kind of flesh it out a little more to make sure that that word alone is itself more inclusive and reflective. Great. Okay, second value, environmental stewardship, which is a recommended continuation from last year and years previous. What do you think about this as you reflect on it as you sit here tonight? Refresh your understanding of this narrative description underneath it. What do you think?
Thank you.
I like it as well. I'm to call out anything. I specifically the procurement stuff. I think is always so important. The intentionality that we have around that. And as we've talked about RFPs that come before us, I think our district does an incredible job at being really thoughtful. So.
Okay. Was there anything else other than, okay, you like it? Great.
Go for it. Yeah, we're so big. And so we have such, to me, a big role to play in setting a tone. And I think too, you know, we've all learned, like, whoever you interact with as a constituent, a patron, like they have their very direct connection. Like I go to the pool and that is my relationship with THPRD. And so I think anytime where we can bring to the forefront that we are environmental stewards of significant portions of land that keep the air healthy, that keep people going outside, that's great. Yes. I think we should keep this one.
Great. Alfredo?
Yeah, seems like, a core value that we do our best to live and center, and a great one to keep right there is something we're continually keeping in mind, one of the big three.
Great. Thank you, Barbie.
I'm wondering if there's a way, now that we do have the climate action plan, if we could speak to that in some measure, in the same way that I think under our commitment to community vision, how we kind of reference some of the outputs of what happened and were identified in the vision action plan, if there's a way in which that we could make a nod to our climate action plan, which I think speaks very directly to environmental stewardship.
What do you think? That'd be easy enough to do.
It's got stated goals, and rather than duplicating them all here, a reference out to that plan and delivering on the goals in it makes sense.
Other people concur with Barbie's suggestion. That would kind of maybe add a little more meat.
Meat on the bone.
A little more meat on the bone. Great. All right, so resounding affirmation of this as a continued value. Support for it, pride about it as well. How about this third and final, the commitment to community vision? As you reflect on it tonight, where's it then you?
2 thumbs up.
Only one.
Can each of you speak even briefly about what a thumbs up means to you or why a thumbs
I'll
up?
jump here because yeah, this one is meaningful for me and that I think we are ambassadors of the community as a board. And I think it's important that we're always connected to the community and not just Alfredo thinks we should be doing X, Y, Z, and Alfredo's passionate about X, Y, Z. That's what we're going to try to, that's the agenda. So I think it's keeping that in mind as a value that we all kind of, what do the people want and what are they looking for? What are they hungry for, thirsty for? So I love that as just a way to keep us kind of honest to just, but in terms of just having that dialogue with the constituents who are in our district. So I think it's great.
Great, thanks, Alfredo.
Others?
There's so many voices and I mean, it's not just a document, it's not just a report, it's this amazing tool that we want to continue to hold ourselves accountable to. And I mean, maybe there'll come a time where this comes off, but it's not this year. Like, I mean, one of the number one things was the registration system. Our community's been real clear on that. So we need to continue to remind ourselves of what the thousands of people that we talked to said they wanted.
Thanks.
I would say something that really jumps out to me about this one that I love is the language. The words that we choose, even like highlighting just certain words, like we're very kind of over the head about welcoming and inclusive, play for everyone, accessibility, safety, environmental stewardship. I even like the word illuminate just because I like the idea of the district being a beacon and the idea of something that, you know, like a lighthouse. It is something that is a tether. And I think that's what community is about. So I think this does a very good job at articulating the importance that the district has to its constituents.
Great, thank you. Tia, I saw thumbs up. Is there anything you want to kind of add to that?
No, I just echo, I mean, it was the gold standard. We all won awards for it and there's a reason. And so to have each of us say something doesn't mean as much as to have thousands of people say something, and it just justifies the decisions that we make. So minus Four Season Park, they just didn't know to ask for it. Sometimes you know better, but
All right then. Right.
I'm just joking. But no. But yes, if I don't get it, this is why, because other people have asked for it. But no, this justifies, I mean, it gives a direction for us to understand what the community wants. It gives staff directions for what they want. So it's just, it's the beacon that illuminates in that's our value. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Couldn't agree more. I think I would add with vision, that's just the part of this that speaks to me too, because I think it implies that is not stagnant. This is the work that continues and is always ongoing, right? As the dynamics of our community change, as the environment changes, having that, call it illumination, the beacon, the hope. But we need to be reminded that what we have today isn't stagnant and just means it needs to stay that way. And I love as well and really appreciate and respect how this kind of brings the other two values together. And this really, to me, is the summary of how that comes forward, because it is what we are here to do, is to serve our community. So, yeah, double thumbs up.
Great. Can I add just one more thing? I think, because last year, I think I was hung up on like ongoing or what we did in the past. And I love that. And I understand fully on the ongoing, and this is exactly what Barbie's talking about. But I think for us, it's important that we just, even those things that we don't necessarily champion is part of community feedback. The 46% of people who said, not getting another cent from me is also like, what? It wasn't 90% to 10. I mean, there's a pretty good minority of people who think you need to find your own money and you need to so those kind of things also like, yes, and we should keep trying to do this thing while we're also trying to, so I think it's just also paying attention to those things that aren't quite, maybe wouldn't be your instinct as a board member, but I'm hearing that. So anyways, that's just my 2 cents.
So community vision writ large, not just this segment of the community vision with which we resonate personally or individually, but the community's vision. Part of what each of you has spoken to is just the reality that it's not about you. You are here on behalf of, informed by, motivated by hundreds or thousands of people out there. And that's why you're here, which I think is a really powerful statement on your part. So another resounding, unanimous affirmation of this is a continued value. So congratulations on reaffirming your values. How about a round of applause for you? A modest round of applause. It's polite. It's a polite, kind of reserved, cool round of applause. All right, so on to budget priorities. So your staff has reflected on the previous budget priorities that you had for a few years and are not suggesting that those budget priorities be forgotten or ditched or done away with, but brought forward in a way that makes them a little more current, that is more reflective of where you are right now at this time. So, staff, would you like to speak to each of these and what your thinking is behind why now, why this for the coming year?
Certainly. You want
Oh,
to open?
Well, sure, why not? So I think with this first one, the focus on long-term funding, it was the next step that made sense to us from what you saw last year, and that was the development of sustainable operating and financial models for the future, because we felt like we made some really important steps with identifying some efficiencies, identifying revenue areas that we could grow, and then getting the levy in place was huge. But we knew we weren't done, and we knew there were some really important messages we heard from the levy task force in particular about taking care of what you've got. And so this long-term funding is really, a levy's great, and we're guaranteed it for the 5 years, but we need to plan for that next step. So this is taking last year's priority a little bit further, this year's priority, a little bit further, and thinking about what the future holds. And so we wanted to call out that we are planning for that replacement bond. We will be planning for a replacement levy. And so there's a bunch of things that we need to do there to set that into place. So I'll turn it to Holly.
Yeah, the one thing I want to just sort of set some context about why there was a little heavier edit to the budget priorities and why they look and feel different And I think it really is a follow-up to some of the dialogue you all had last year when you were recognizing, we're coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. We're in a different place, and it's time that these budget priorities reflect that. And as we were preparing the budget priorities, we heard your message loud and clear and felt it even more, because we're really not as focused as we were about rebuilding back. It's really about future focus. What do we need to do foundationally now to be prepared for what we need to become? And so if you feel contextually that they feel different, it's because they were written from that perspective, right? They're not looking backward in terms of recovery and repair. They're looking forward in terms of what's next and how do we set the table to make sure that we're investing in the right things to prepare us for what's coming our way. So that's the context, I think, to evaluate each one of these.
And would it be reasonable to point out that while this is a new budget priority, kind of, when you look at the third budget priority from years prior, there's certainly some consistent themes here. Although the language is different, but we talk about sustainable financial models.
It is different. I'd say what it is it's evolved and it's grown up because we've had that financial futures group. We've had the successful levy. We know that we're getting ready for the bond measure. We know that we've done some work to think about how do we expand our revenue streams, whether it's looking at sponsorships, whether it's looking at how to make rentals more efficient, getting more people in the door. So it's kind of putting all of those things together and thinking about how do we build stronger for the future.
So the phrase you started with is it's grown up. So a slightly more evolved, current, I don't want to use the word sophisticated, but maybe sophisticated view. Both of them point to expanding and diversifying revenue streams.
And also, this is the first time you see that language around the partnerships and collaborations with government agencies. It's another thing you all have been talking about, and that we know we can get more done together by being smart and bringing our investments along together. So it's really taking some of what we've been working on and solidifying it in that long-term funding strategy.
So with that, what do the five of you think about this? Comments, questions, concurrence, pushback?
I really like this. I'm really glad the allocation model is mentioned. I think that's something that I don't know how to talk about it, but it is very much in alignment with our values. And I always really struggle to talk about it, and it can get a little wonky. And so I'm really looking forward to us diving deep and being able to talk to community about it and literally what it means and where your property taxes are going, right? So I'm excited that that's called out. Yay, financial aid, equity initiatives. So I'm excited about this, and I think this is just like to Alfredo's point around not everyone voted for the levy. So we need to continue to be good stewards of resources and maximize what we have. So this makes perfect sense.
Great.
I like the mutually beneficial strategic investments with government partners, but I'm wondering if, we talk about our new sponsorship model and the things that are, do we need to include community partners as maybe other companies and stuff, or people in our community or groups in our community that can help be part of that as we focus on long-term funding? And then the thing that I feel like is missing from this is talking about sustainability. This is kind of a plan, but there's nothing that talks about how I'm always the Debbie Downer in terms of finances of what happens if our levy replacement doesn't pan out the second time. So it's how do we make sure that we are sustainable in that should we plan for the worst, we know it's what we can and can't do by then. So those are the two comments that I have.
Just for my edification, that first suggestion, can you point out
So
where?
it says mutually beneficial strategic investments with government partners. So I was thinking it should say government and community
I see.
partners.
So what does staff think about that suggestion, as well as the possibility of calling out sustainability specifically as a piece of this? Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. Others of you? Miles?
Thinking to the allocation model thing, that Felicitas highlighted there. I was thinking about what operator was saying previously as well. I was thinking about the intentionality of like how taxpayers' dollars are being used, how we communicate that to our constituents. And I think you said it perfectly, Felicitas, with like just reinforcing that we're being good stewards of resources. So I like that being articulated in that way. I kind of looked at last year's budget priorities and this year's budget priorities and kind of wrote like one word highlights of like what is represented in them. And the only thing that I think I don't see that is took to that next level in this coming fiscal year is a conversation about staff. And I don't know how best for us to look into that. I mean, or to kind of work that in. But I just want there to be like a continued investment internally too of the people that make this district run. I know coming back from COVID, it was hard with a lot of difficulty of our seasonal workers moving on. And so I think having that still be a priority will give to the vitality of our district long term.
Okay.
So maybe that is something that is highlighted in long-term funding somewhere. But yeah, that would be the thing that I would flag.
So quick question, when you and Felicity, you also talk about the resource allocation model, are you saying that that's a mechanism by which you can report out to the community with transparency and accountability, how you're spending your money, why you're spending your money that way, choices you're making?
It's been years since I've looked at the pyramid.
Okay.
But my understanding is like, there might be some changes to the pyramid, even just like visually, or I was excited about how we're gonna talk about this. So I think it might be different,
Okay.
not bad, different.
Okay. And then the idea that Miles has of rather than completely losing a staff explicit thing, is there a way to weave that into long-term funding or not so much?
So I think we should table that discussion until we get to the investing in technologies,
Okay.
because that's the one that used to be staff and technologies. And I think we could have a rich discussion about why that changed and if it should change, and how to change. So if you're cool with it, I think that's where it originally was, and I think we should have it there.
Are you okay with that, Miles? Okay, great. Barbie, what do you think about this one?
I'm wondering, my buzzword, I come back to storytelling. Y'all know that I'm big on making sure that we are communicating, and especially hearing these comments around being stewards. And I don't know if there's a way that we could finesse that is, I'm concerned in really hearing you loudly, I think in this moment of the 46% who didn't. 43, pardon me, I gotta get it absolutely correct. And I don't know if that is even the header. Hear me out. I'm thinking out loud on this one, and I've been trying to noodle with how to articulate. But to say a focus on long-term funding right on as this year's budget priority on the heels of this passing, I'm just wondering if there's a wordsmith way in which it's speaking. I worry that comes across as being a bit tone deaf to what just happened, I guess, to say it another way. So I'm playing myself if I'm the person who was not happy, and then I wanted to see, okay, this levy has passed, and I'm now looking to see how THPRD is stewards of these funds. They're already talking about the next thing. And that I understand the intention, And just wondering if there's a way that we could maybe just noodle that a bit or wordsmith it to make that distinction. I feel like I've stumped you.
You haven't, do you want me to?
I would love to hear your, I mean, 'cause normally we've been giving a thumbs up, or my peers, if.
Here's just Holly's reaction to that. I want to think about how to address what you're saying and if there's a better way to word it. But I love the intentionality of the idea. Because for me, the learning lesson of going through the COVID-19 pandemic and everything that brought to light was the historic better decisions we could have made that might have prevented some of the pain that we experienced. And I think the lesson is we've learned and we're not going to repeat some of those mistakes, right? So that's a very mean way to put it, but what do I mean by that? We kicked the can down the road on fixing some of our internal systems. You know, we never probably should have had a financial system that was 1 month away from not being serviced before we changed it, right? We probably should have been looking at registration system before when we are. There are a lot of things that we've done, and there's a reason why we're investing in technology. There's a reason why we had to do a salary schedule and change wages because we hadn't done a salary study for 20 years and enacted it. So when the labor market became bananas, we couldn't hire. Well, why couldn't we hire? Were we 2 years off? No, we were 20 years off. We had some positions that were really out of alignment. You know, why are we thinking about taking care of our facilities in a different way? We're looking at federal grants and opportunities in ways we never could before, and we've made changes to make ourselves eligible for these grants in ways we never were before. So what you see as potential negative, will the 43% say, oh, you're trying to get more money? I would say proudly, no. What we're trying to do is plan for the future better so we are not surprised. This is what government, business, and people who are running good organizations should be doing. They should not be stewards of just today's budget. They should be thinking down the line, how are we taking care of our assets and our resources in a way so that our people, our buildings, and our amenities are there for us in the future. And you're not paying double, triple what you should have been paying, because if you had been taking care of things all along in a slightly different way, you wouldn't be paying such catch up. You know, I don't want the communications director who replaces me to get the call I did. Hey, lady, buy all the toner on the shelf because your machine's so old. This is the last toner you're going to get for it.
Right.
You know, so that's, to me, if I were in your shoes, I would say, you're right. And we should focus on this so that your investment of tax dollars in this district are managed as responsibly and intelligently today and tomorrow. This is a good thing.
So that's a powerful message. Is it what you were thinking about, hoping to get to?
I mean, I
wanting-
think it dovetails very nicely to what you're talking about with the sustainability piece of, I think you gave examples that color it in a way that I think provides more of that emotional. So again, that storytelling connection of understanding the why behind, not just so explicit in 1, 2, 3.
And we would intentionally added in the financial aid piece and the keeping it accessible, because remember the promise we all made to each other. We're not going to talk about increases without talking at the same time of how we don't leave people behind. So it has that balance.
Did everybody have a chance to speak to this one? Anybody have an additional thought as the conversation has evolved?
I do have additional.
Yeah.
Just really about what we're talking about here. I think another layer to this is it becomes like both a transparency and an education opportunity. Unless something drastically changes with Oregon's property tax structure, we're going to go to our voters for a bond. We're going to go to our voters for a levy. It's going to happen. And if we can communicate to community members about what that means and what that looks like, it doesn't become like a scary thing that shows up where we're knocking on the door, being like, we want more money. It's like, well, our system is inefficient because of Measure 5 and Measure 50. And now we want, we need this to be able to continue to give you the experiences that you are asking for in our community.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think, I see this as mostly really good. I see it as a great timely, budget priority on the heels of the levy, because of, you kind of, I mean, I think it has to show our work a little bit, and that you have to show all the tools that you're gonna need to utilize, and call them out. And I think, to fulfill community vision of what they want this park district to be. So, which, in this climate in the state of Oregon is, usually increasingly local option levies and, bond measures for cool new stuff. I think it hits all the things. It shows we are committed to doing, yes, those, but not just those, all these other things. But we're never going to do those things because we want to bring you the Parks and Rec facilities, spaces that you want and that you expect. The only thing I would add is if I'm reading between the lines of continue to expand efforts to invest in financial aid and equity initiatives, I see, and this will surprise no one, that I'm carrying water for the Tualatin Hills Park Foundation. I see a wink and a nod to, we might need some private money to come in and help us with those things. I mean, if it were to make sense to continue to articulate that there's something involving supporting a dedicated independent foundation that supports the park district, I feel like that would be appropriate, although I'm connecting those dots to those expanded efforts that will involve a more robust foundation. If it makes sense, and it may not, if it makes sense to articulate that as including something Tualatin Hills Park Foundation and other avenues of whatever, blah, blah, blah.
And Alfredo, is it specifically reference to the foundation, or is it to referencing even a broader pool of possible funds, be they corporate, be they foundation?
But I think there's value in a foundation feeling like they are part of what we're all doing.
I see. Okay.
Very direct.
Right.
I struggle with our purview, our role is the THPRD budget. The foundation, critical to the success. And there are heck of a lot of opportunities there. We all know that. I don't know if I love calling it out directly in our budget priorities. Unless we want to say, we as a district want to spend more money on the foundation because of its potential, which that's a whole different conversation that we can probably not have today.
So one way to do it is reference the foundation specifically. Another is to just broaden the list of possible revenue sources to include the kinds of things the foundation or the district might go after, like foundations, like corporate, like et cetera, et cetera. So,
And that's, that's why I was just putting it out there as a,
okay.
Community partners. I was just going to say, I feel like if we wordsmith and we're adding in the investments with community partners, they could fall under that.
So it sounds like, did you have a comment?
I do
Sorry.
one more thing.
Yeah.
I can't unsee Barbie's point about the levy, like just asking for more money, like prepare for it. So now that I read it, like that's all I see. And I know it's just because somebody mentioned it. So I wasn't sure if prepare and educate the district on the community returns of the bond measure in 2026 and the levy, something about education or that we're preparing and showcasing what they will get rather than I'm just gonna ask you for more money.
And that aligns with what Miles mentioned about these are opportunities also to educate.
It's just that sense. I mean, I get it and I get your storytelling, Holly, but when you read it, I can't unread from that point of view now. And so I think it just needs a couple more words of like, prepare the district or the community and educate of the returns or something like that.
Although I could see that being inherent in preparation. That preparation includes the storytelling.
But prepare is like, I'm creating something to ask for more money from you, not just like, we're all planning, right? We're planning and we're gonna educate and we're gonna showcase all the things you're gonna get and, all of that. I don't know. Preparing just means, it seems from our side, it's just us preparing.
Here we go.
Ask.
We're getting ready.
So, yeah.
So part of what it sounds like is yay on number one. And if there could be some work done on fleshing out the storytelling piece, the stewardship and the reporting back to piece, the educating piece, and not just for the supporters, but for the big chunk of people who said no or not now, that would really be great.
And
Are-
sustainability.
And sustainability. So are those requests doable?
Yep, got it.
In some way? Great. All right. All right. Ready to move on? Great discussion. All right. Enhance environmental sustainability and climate resilience. Anybody on staff want to speak to why this year, why framed in this kind of way? Although this isn't a new thing, this is reflected under environmental stewardship for sure, but as a budget priority, it's different.
I think it really just builds on what we've done. And so I think environmental sustainability, we feel better poised to tackle now with the climate action plans. We can immediately start implementing some of the directions we got through that plan. And the climate resilience, it fits in with our legislative platform. It fits in with a really big grant we just got. It's something that we need to be thinking about as we build new things, as we retrofit old things. So for us, this just really feels like the right space and timing to build upon the work that we've done to date. So this is where we, set up our community for success moving forward.
Okay. What do the five of you think as you reflect on this and read it?
I really like the last sentence, invest in social justice partnerships, because we are not always the best leader for things. Maybe 80% of the time, we're totally the right leader. And other times it makes sense to bring other people in as partners because they have trust or to take the lead. And we sit back and listen. And especially on climate resilience, sustainability that disproportionately impact our BIPOC communities. I really appreciate that sentence. I think it's such an alignment with our values and the values you've been hearing for years on this board.
Others of you, what do you think about this one?
I concur with what Felicia just said, and I really appreciate Aisha's framing on that this is the right time for staff to, I would hate for this to be find a way to make it even though you're not ready, kind of. To hear that honestly is like, I was already in alignment, but that makes me feel more empowered in alignment to like, good, staff feels good. This isn't just, okay, this is gonna make it tough. So that's great. So I think it's awesome.
Right.
I really appreciate of course, what Felicia said, calling that out, love it. But also in that first line, environmental sustainability and like really getting to the capital improvements piece, thinking about infrastructure, thinking about that work, my understanding is that updating older things is going to be a lot harder than doing the newer stuff. But I'm also glad that it is brought up as well in the aligning future development with our long-term sustainability goals too. So it's very intentional with a look back, but also our look forward. And I appreciate that.
Great.
It's great. I like it. The only thing, and maybe it's just me, and I'm not very eloquent or anything, but when I read pursue opportunities to integrate sustainability, it just feels kind of like not as concrete, I guess. It's like, oh, we'll try to find things that'll work. So I wonder if you don't even need pursue opportunities. It's just integrate sustainability and facility planning, maintenance and programming, because it's a value, right? Environmental steward. It's like everything what we're doing. And now it's like also in our budget. So
All like a certain thing.
yeah, it's just, so that was only.
I love edits that chop.
Like, that's an easy one. Can we move on to number 3?
I love less text.
Well, I'm not going to steal the win there. I concur. How about I just say that? I concur.
Do you have other thoughts or observations about this particular budget priority?
The thought would, and I'm just voicing this out loud, is it could just simply be solved by, again, eliminating, like we said, we were just editing to just say integrate sustainability, but I can't not echo the same comments I made earlier about our value about the climate action plan. We do have a plan. So I don't know if there are particular ones when you're thinking of, there are different avenues and there's different categories. And so are there ones that we could pull forward and be more explicit to say from the plan that's in this year what we could focus on? I just would be remiss if we weren't connecting the dots between the plan that we have. So it's not just in pursuit of, we have a plan.
Well, and I think that as you're setting these priorities, what our steps we take as staff will be after these are finalized at your next board meeting, potentially, is that we then start building our goals for next budget year around what you've identified. So you might not see the specificity within this statement, but this statement allows us to say, goals for next year, you'll read about it in the sustainability department narrative. This is what we intend to do. And so we'll be pulling things from climate action plan, running it through this filter and saying, this is what we would be doing now.
And there's that level of specificity in the budget itself so that the board can look and say, that's where this is, that's where this is. Does that
100%.
make sense? Okay. So, yes.
Oh, when you get to number 3, may I set context before you?
Yes, you can. Is there anything that's been asked or suggested about the second one that you have questions about, or that give you heartburn or consternation or pause? No? I keep looking at you. Sorry, Doug. It's you and Aisha and everybody back there.
In English, then you should look at.
I know it's all of you. It's not just you, but it's the wordsmither. Everybody following along? Okay, great. All right, so here is this third one. I just want to point out that previously it said invest in our employees and technology. So the technology isn't a new thing specifically, but it's been written about and highlighted in a different way. So could you give us the context for that?
Okay, here's the context. And Thomas, I'm going to boomerang right back to you because you've done such a good job over the years telling us 3 things, and you can't have a gazillion clauses in there. So 3 looks like 6 or 8.
Stand by that discipline.
Yes, thank you. So here's the deal. Also read the italicized language that talks about what the budget priorities mean, right? This is our direction to staff. These are the top 3 budget priorities. It doesn't mean other things aren't important. It means as we prepare the budget, as we drive the budget, these are the top 3 priorities that we're looking at. I confess, when I drafted it, I took staff out. That does not feel good to say, and out of context, I'd probably fire me for saying that. But the reason that I wanted to focus on technology is because some of the things we probably should have put, as I'm reflecting now on the wins of 2024, look at all the changes that we have made for staff. When that priority was focused on staff and technology, we did a lot more emphasis on the staff piece than the technology piece. Yes, we've done enterprise, but we have so much more to do, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But what did we do for staff? We've done multiple pay increases and part-time scales multiple times, moving through our hard times in hiring. We've added part-time benefits before that we haven't had before. We worked on focus groups with our employees to not just offer benefits, but figure out what would be of most meaning. They were at the table, they were helping determine what benefits would be most attractive. We did that salary scale analysis, which hadn't been done before. There's been so much investment in staff to make sure that we've got the right compensation, the right offerings, and the right tools for staff. When I look at the work, and remember, IS is in my division. So this is the division or the department in my division, honestly, that is going to take the most focus over the next year. We are doing that IS assessment. It is going to restructure that department completely. It's a flat department, one manager, 10 people, not working. We don't have the right structure in place. We don't have policies and procedures in place. We don't have a way to curate right now new software requests. We don't have policies around AI. We are reactive, not proactive. We've got to get website done. We've got to get ready to do registration system. We have so many things in front of us that are going to take a full focus on building that department, giving it the support it needs, and giving it an engine that's going to empower the rest of the work of the district. That's why it's a focus priority. And it isn't that we're leaving staff behind. This is the priority to enable the staff work throughout the district. So this was us showing some of that discipline that, you've kind of beaten in our head about. You really need to hone in on what's most important to get you where you need to go. That's why it's tight. That's why it's focused, because it, to me, is like the thing that will enable all the other things to happen. But if we don't let people know, hey, this is the focus right now, and we need to put some energy and some time into even building the house so the house is ready to serve everyone, we're not doing the right thing. So
Would it be reasonable to say that as a result of all of this work, that this will not just help fuel the work of the staff, but this will improve?
Oh, yeah.
This will benefit
I mean, if my technology is like
staff
decades.
across the enterprise?
Yeah.
Okay. So there you go. That's the context. That's the thinking. What do you think?
I almost want to look to you, Miles, first, just because I know you had, I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that. But just knowing that we had tabled staff till we got here, if hearing that context.
Yeah, Holly, thank you for the context. I definitely appreciate everything you said. I think about like when we were talking about our big picture, looking forward for 2025, when we were talking about IS assessment, I literally wrote down cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, cyber attacks. These are things that local governments are thinking about nationwide. I've attended a lot of seminars and like listening in about it. It's super important, not just to the safety of the district as an entity, but also to our community members. So I totally track with that. And to the point of us honing in and keeping it really tight, I can make peace with the intentionality behind the technology, and also remembering the celebration of all the cool things that we've been able to see with the improvements of staff over this last year.
But I do think, to yours and Thomas's point, though, if this is also about making staff's lives easier and work improved, that can be finessed in here so that we're reflecting that this is to improve not just the user experience, but the staff's experience.
Does that help?
That would make me happy.
Great. Great. Okay, others of you, what do you think about this one?
All sounds great. I don't have, yeah. I guess I just want to add, so the English language learners, to me, that stood out as like, is that K through 12 language? Are we, so that is my lack of knowledge that I acknowledge. And part of me was just like, oh, can we just change it to like, regardless of language ability, period? That was just with very limited expertise, that stood out to me.
I see. Okay. The rest of it? Good?
Great.
Okay.
Holly sold it.
Okay. All right.
I think it's great. Yeah. I was just, when we were talking about employees, I was thinking about John's testimony about how this summer was the first summer where he didn't ever get a complaint or somebody asking. And so I think our employees are in a really good space. And just because our budget is not focused on that now, to add more things, we've already placed the things there to make it successful for them for now. So I feel really good about not having our focus budget priority yet, because we're sustaining now. We're not improving or adding more money or focusing our money to that because it's already done and good. And our team just does such a good job. So yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with just technology.
I really like how we've separated. I think everyone knows we tried to squeeze one in with invest in our employees and
Tricky.
this is like, we're kind of isolating the muscle and like a workout thing here. So I like that it's very specific. I love that the last two words are user experience. In the first sentence, it says improve service delivery and efficiency. For me, I think we have to be able to, for our people we serve who will ask, what's better for me today than yesterday? Not what's better, not what's feeding into the holistic experience, but like what is easier and better and faster than, or cheaper or whatever for me today. So I think this speaks to that kind of directly. And so I like it. I did think I picked up on English language learner as being people speaking English as a second or other language, but if there is a way, sure. But yes, thank you for the specificity.
Great. What do you think?
I think all of the comments that have already been made once, especially if we can tweak in there that, again, I want to end on user experience. But so where those commas are of, again, I have certainly been in a situation where, again, as an employee, where the technology does not work. And that can be absolutely so frustrating when, it's taking you 10 times as long to accomplish the one thing because the technology is failing. And so to me, I think piggybacking, thank you for providing the context, Holly, because it does remind us of all of the ways in which we did center and focus on the employees that I think, man, if all of the systems at play enable your work to soar, and I think immediately of our new rentals and just what an ease of that to just have this button that now boom and everything is available front and center. That to me is a living example of what we mean by how we serve. So it is twofold. It is those who behind the scenes are making the magic happen, and then it is how our patrons come to us and experience. So yeah, I'm fully on board.
I don't know if we need to add equity somewhere in here of user experience equity and also that like our registration system. I mean, I would love for it to help with Centro in a way somehow for financial aid and all, and that's all. To have some kind of preference or so that it takes away staff's need to have to re-register everyone one at a time and those kinds of things to make it more efficient. But yeah, so equity in terms of the person using it and everybody can use it, but also the way that we allow people to register so it's more equitable in terms of what order they eventually can register in.
So these suggestions, are they realistic? That's okay. They're not suggestions that are kind of mission creep in disguise, are they? They're all aligned with what's in here.
Nothing seems unachievable.
It seems what?
I said, nothing seems unachievable. It all seems achievable.
Great. So the theme around efficient technology that all of you have emphasized in one way or another is that this is not about technology for technology's sake. This is about technology for the community, for the benefit of your users. This is technology for the benefit of your staff, not just technology for technology's sake. So that's fantastic. Is there anything else about these three, hearing that the next step is that your staff come back with more specificity about here's what we've done with that in this proposed budget. Here's where this lives. Here's where you can see these things manifest. Is there anything else for your staff or
A little bit more staff. Sorry.
your team? I think you don't call it your staff. I don't. Your team, the team. The
Doug is
people.
our.
These people. These people. Oh, you only have one. I love this. I love that you have one staff.
You got
I
enough
love it.
problems with me, so.
That's it.
I don't think so.
All right, I have a question. So when you think about this in terms of budget implications, obviously efficient technologies seems to be pretty simple, not simple, but clear. Enhancing environmental sustainability and climate resilience, that's going to come down to specific spending decisions and specific financial investments that you're going to be able to point to and say that's where this is, correct?
Not in the next board meeting, but when they get the
Eventually.
budget.
In the budget,
review,
that's what
Yes, yes.
So long-term funding is somebody who has raised lots of money for lots of different causes over many years. I just have a question or maybe a thought. The resources that it takes to pursue all of those wonderful, exciting funding opportunities, to really research, to vet, to test, to develop the models around it, to build those relationships as somebody who just helped secure $1 million. I mean, these are also sometimes relationship heavy investments. So I just want to put out a word that that's not a freebie. So I hope that you're looking at what does it really take to pursue those things, because they're not free.
Yeah.
Does
We'll
that make
call-
sense to the rest of you?
Yeah. No, it's,
Fundraisers.
yeah, and it will be called out in the process of the budget doc. The budget document has references directly to budget priorities.
That's great. I just know that some people who haven't raised money for a living don't necessarily understand how labor intensive and time intensive it can be. So congratulations to you and congratulations to your one staff and your team, because they're now your staff and your team. This is really great work. How about a round of applause for all of you? Anything else? Madam Chairperson, or
To you, Doug, to just make sure
No,
anything else that you need
Thank
to
you for
hear.
a great forum. Thank you, Thomas,
you're
for
welcome.
the support. Yeah.
Okay. Any of my peers, last comments? Then I'm, all right. Thank you so much, Thomas. We are adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Phil, nice job.
Yeah.
Yes.